That's weird. Hey, good morning. Good morning, good morning. Ooh. Morning. Sorry I look like a crazy person, but we're gonna start a new book today. Yay! I'm making coffee real quick and then we're gonna do this thing. Morning. I made cold slime till midnight last night, till midnight. Oh my goodness. I love that Becca just shared this live with the entire book club because she's the only one who gets the alerts and she's like the official, Becca's like the official I'm alerting everyone person. That's so funny. It's just me again. And I get to work 12.5 hours. Oh my gosh, wow. Well, we're kind of back to normal. I had to hop in and say good morning before my last class. I haven't seen you in a while. Oh my gosh, Cocaine. Hey, how are you? We're starting a new book today. Have fun at your last class. Becca is my Sasha alarm. I get the alerts, but not if I'm already in TikTok. That is... Okay, I have to tell you, Shira, Shelly, that's so backwards. Did you know that cap honey people you can share to at once? Yes, they do. They sure do. I think it's 15 people or something like that. I'm so good. I hope you're well. I hope you're well too. I'll be back on tonight making slime if you're bored tonight, Cocaine. All right, bye, Kiki. But like tonight I think I'm gonna make a custom order on live if people want to do that. All right, you be there for real, for real. I was watching a playlist about a woman who got pulled over and said she didn't. I love those. I love watching people go crazy on those things. That's so funny. So funny. Yeah, so we're back to normal now. How many do I need to purchase for a custom order? I require 10 of the same slime for a custom order because if I don't do at least 10 of the same one, it's not really worth it. Like supply wise, I would have to charge you so much. I love your refrigerator, so pretty. Thank you so much. Becca, I think it's gonna be a butter. I'm like 90% sure that it's gonna be a butter for Tiana. I don't know why. I just feel like it needs to be. And there's not a lot of people on here, so I'll probably re-announce this again tonight. But I think I'm going to do something slime crazy, you guys. Like, I've been thinking about this. Hey, how you doing, sweetheart? I know, the yawn is for all of us who are on the West Coast, right? I see that. I see those West Coast emojis. You, me, and Shira, we're here like this. And everyone else is on the other coast like, we've been up for hours. But what I was going to say was, I think I'm going to do something a little out of the ordinary. For my custom slime, could I ask you to get some horse charms for it? Yes, they would just cost a little bit extra because I don't have them on hand. So I don't charge extra for charms that I have already in my stock. But if I have to buy a new charm for your thing, it would, like, for example, why didn't that froth? What the heck? Well, that's weird. At least it's warm. For example, I'm doing another custom order that I'll probably also make on live tonight. And it is for a little boy who loves dinosaurs, and we got him glow-in-the-dark dinosaur charms. So the mom paid a little bit extra. It cost her $10 extra for the whole order to have dinosaur glow-in-the-dark charms. So it's not like a large amount extra, but like those charms cost more than like when I buy slimes or charms in bulk, you know what I mean? Because it was just for her order. Good morning, Missy. So yeah, I could get horse charms. You're my favorite person. I'd seriously love to meet you someday. My kids love you. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I am trying to figure out like a way that like all of our book club, can't show all over that. I will not show him. I'm trying to figure out a way that all of our book club people could meet up one day. I think that would be really fun. And then someone asked if I was a cat or a dog person. Honestly, both. I've always had both. I don't have any pets right now because both my cat and my dog passed away from old age within a really short time of each other. You know how that goes. And I just really haven't got another one yet. This all being said, you all know how long does it take to receive an order? It depends on where you live. That all being said, you all know that I'm like, I really want to get another pet. Like I've been wanting one since the end of last year. It's okay. It's been over a year and a half since they both passed. But they're so different though. I'm not sure how I'd combine them. Combine what? What kind of books are you discussing? We're starting a new book today, actually, Kat. We haven't even started it yet. We're going to start it in just a second. But guys, at Disneyland, I saw yesterday or 2 days ago when we were there, they have a whole new line of like pet like stuff. I think the triplets might need slime for their next birthday party. Oh, that's super easy. We can either combine them or we can just do everything in thirds. You know what I mean? Like all like a third of it for one of their interests, a third, and a third. But they have a brand new line of stuff at Disneyland that is Marie, the girl from the Aristocats, the little pink and white kitten. And it's all like cat bowls and collars and like beds and stuff. And it's all like little Parisian Marie stuff. And it's so cute. And I was like, I want a kitten so I can give her all the Marie stuff. It's so cute. You know, it's just so stinking cute. Oh man, coffee's good, y'all. It's hard to beat coffee. I don't know how people live without it. I'm really bothered by my post office. Your package still hasn't shipped. Something that I mailed to you, Haley? I thought everybody got all their orders already. I'm pretty sure everybody, I'm confused. Wait. Are you sure? I'm pretty sure everybody received all their orders already. Oh, she mailed something to me, not me getting you something. Okay, I'm sorry. I got really nervous all of a sudden. I was like, did I screw up? Okay, sorry. Zoe was over here and completely reorganized my furniture, so my my footstool that I usually use during reading is not where it usually is, because apparently Zoe decided we needed to redecorate the living room. She didn't like the way it was and she redecorated. I'm so sorry, Haley. I'm sorry. The post office can be really annoying, but just get yourself a cute little kitty stuffy and get the stuff. I don't know, that feels a little wasteful, doesn't it, to buy like a bowl? Also, like that feels a little like those people who are really into the what are those dolls called? The real babies or whatever? Like, I don't know. I don't think I can ever be the person who is an adult. Reborns, yeah, I see, that really freaks me out. Those reborns real scare me, y'all. They really scare me. I think if I'm gonna buy the cat stuff, you didn't miss anything yet, Tiffany. We're just discussing reborn baby dolls. Which is a weird moment to come in on. No, what we're actually discussing is the fact that I want a kitten. That's what we're actually discussing. We're discussing the fact that I would like to have a kitten. I could do it for Zoe, but the stuff is expensive to buy for a kid. Like, this is a really nice set of bowls and things like that. They're not cheap. You know what I mean? We're not talking like plastic stuff. We're talking like glass, like really beautiful, like French looking things with gold rims, and they're pink and they're themed after Marie, but they're not baby things. These are like really nice things that could go in a, like, it would fit with my pink kitchen perfectly. They look like they would match it. Like, there's a spot I know exactly where I'd put them, buy them and save them for when you're ready for a kitty. Yeah, I might do that. That is totally doable, but I just can't see myself paying, because like if I bought the whole set, it would probably the whole set would probably run me somewhere in the range of like $200, which is fine. When you're buying stuff for your new pet, that's totally normal. But like, I'm not going to pay $200 to give items to a 2-year-old. You know what I mean? Like, I buy Zoe expensive things all the time, but not for a fake cat. Would you get a cat over a dog? I don't know. I have both in my mind. It's very hard to decide. The only reason that I would consider one over the other instead of both is that sometimes I do have to travel for work, and it would be much easier for my sister with her kids to help me check in on a cat than a dog. Like, she wouldn't have to come walk a dog. She would just come, let the kids play with the kitten and change the litter and feed the cat. You know what I mean? I wouldn't leave while it was still a bitty baby, but you know what I mean? So like, if Catherine has to watch, yeah, no, totally, Missy. I know you didn't mean that. No. I do intend to. Cats are more low maintenance. Yeah, exactly. So I don't intend to travel for work forever. But at the moment, like, I do have some work gigs that I do still travel to. So I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, it would just be so easy for Catherine to take care of a cat on my behalf. Well, there you go. See, if I get a puppy, I can hang out with Aunt Shira. If I get a puppy, kids, I love the pearlness. It's getting so close. Barely 2 months, and we're going to have 2 of those little munchkins running around here. Well, I mean, he's not going to be running for any reason kind of time. Cats are easier when it comes to traveling. They're solo manies. Exactly. So it just depends, you know. And the thing is, this is the really hard. I'm gonna like level with you guys. Level with you all. I am at a moral personal crossroad, okay? And I wouldn't say this on like the big live because I wouldn't want to fight with all of the people. I totally understand that, Becca. I love them too. You should just come hold the new ones that we're gonna have here, and then that will satiate you for a little while. Oh my gosh, that's so cute. You all almost have the same name. That's so precious. So I have always adopted pets. Like, my cat and my dog were both adopted. I didn't go in to buy pets. I just so Fred, my cat who I had the longest, he was from Broadway Barks. So a lot of you who are Broadway folks probably know about the charity that Bernadette Peters runs, and Broadway Barks. Hey Cole, Broadway Barks is like every year in the summer they have an event. Hi Brianna, where you can go out and you can adopt animals. And we didn't mean to. He absolutely had a person name. Yeah, Fred was my baby. And I walked by the kitten cart. And there was this perfect little adorable orange kitten in there, and I adopted him, you know what I mean? But it wasn't like I went to like a fancy breeder and bought a fancy cat or whatever like that. And then Pip, my dog, who his full name is Pippin McNibs, named after Pippin the musical, but then also Nibs is one of the Lost Boys in Peter Pan. But Pippin, Pip, what we called him, was like, we were just walking by a pet store to buy stuff for Fred, and there were 2 little puppies it's such a sweet charity. There were 2 little puppies in like a thing. You know how sometimes in the back of pet stores they have like an adoption day or whatever, and Pip was back there, and the other dog in his crate was so loud and so barky, and Pip was just like huddled in the corner in the back, and he looked like he was just like it looked like the introvert child. Yes, he absolutely had magic to do. It looked like the introvert child in a family versus the extrovert child in a family. And so I asked the person, I said, while I'm shopping, can I just hold that puppy so that he doesn't feel so like put out by the other dog in his pen? You know what I mean? Like, he looks like he's sad being in that pen with that dog. And they were like, yeah, you can hold him. And as soon as I picked him up, he rested his little head right in the crook of my neck. And I was like, well, crap, now I have to take him home. So I took him home, and I didn't even check with my roommates. I was living in New York City in my mid-20s or like early 20s, I guess. And I just got him. I didn't even check with them. And when my roommate came home, I was like, I did a bad thing. And they were like, what did you do? And they walked in my room, and there's a puppy sitting on my bed. You know what I mean? So like, I never went and like bought fancy dogs or bought fancy cats or anything like that. All of this to say, I really have like this insane desire for either the worker knew he'd make me. I know. I was stupid. Like, whatever. I just took the puppy home with me, and he was the best dog ever. I mean, you can ask anyone. Pip was the best dog that ever dogged. Like, best dog ever. And he was already 6 months old when I got him, so he was a great dog. But I really have been wanting either a ragdoll kitten or a King Charles Cavalier puppy. And those are not really dogs or cats that you get at a rescue. And this is the problem that I'm having, right? Like, I know that we should rescue animals and that there are too many animals in shelters and things like that. But how adorable would a little ragdoll kitten look in my perfect pastel living room with her perfect little Marie set of stuff, or like a little King Charles Cavalier with like Lady and the Tramp stuff, like running around in this perfect little rainbow house. You know what I mean? And I know that animals are not about aesthetic, but like, I care for my animals really well. So it would be beyond that. But like, I just like the look of them is really appealing to me right now. And that's part of why I haven't jumped. Yes, I absolutely could. And I have been. But as you all, ragdolls are so sweet. I know. And they're so big. And that's what I love about them. Like, she's been a perfect kitten to cat. See, that's what I hear from everyone. My sister's best friend has a ragdoll and she loves her. And they're just such bigger cats. And I like that they're like, Fred was a really big cat. He grew really fast and really big. And so I'm used to having larger cats in the house. And so I don't want a cat that necessarily is going to stay small. I've seen a ragdoll. Like, yeah. Join a rehome group on Facebook in your community. That's a really good idea. I have a connection to reputable dog breeders if needed, possibly ragdolls too. Yeah, that's the thing. If I do adopt one that's not from a shelter, I want to go to someone really reputable. But the other thing is that they're very expensive. So it's something that I would absolutely have to save up for because I don't have a random $3,000 just laying around. Like I am not, I actually saw a really funny, not only a funny video, but like a very true video from a creator who I really like here on TikTok. She has about 1.5 million followers and she gets a lot of comments from people that are like, don't lie. You say that you only make $75,000 a year at your job, but you know you're making a ton of money off of TikTok. And she was like, do you all want to guess how much TikTok pays me for my 1.5 million followers? It's freaking goose egg. You know what I mean? Like it's so funny that she was like, that's not how any of this works. So people see like some like creators and they think like being on TikTok, like, do I make money because I have a good following on TikTok? Yeah, absolutely I do, because they buy my product. But like it takes work to make my product. You know what I mean? Like that's the other, and like I get other jobs because of I swim in money, Scrooge McDuck style. I mean, that's a little dirty. It's just like money's really dirty, Becca, but like you do you know? Like I don't think I would touch that much money all at once, but like, you know. So anyway, I've been just like talking because I wanted to give everyone a chance to get on since we're starting and like our regular people. Was that Madeline? I don't know. Maybe. She's the girl who has the alternative clothing line. I don't know her name. Becca, if you have a money tree and you've been holding out on me, why didn't you just buy me a kitten? If any of us has a money tree or a money vault, we're required to get each other the thing that we really want. That's how the club works. That's the whole thing about this club. You have a money tree, we all get kittens. Madeline does have a clothing line. Okay, then it probably is her. Yeah. Oliver wants to know where his kitten is too. Right. No, like, I get it. Thank you, Oliver, for supporting me in this thought. Like, it's a group effort. If one of us has a money tree, we all get stuff. I thought that was obvious. Yeah, I'm broke too. But if I had a money tree, I would buy Oliver a kitten. Duh. My kitten would take another. Right. Well, like if we had a money tree, we could have an unlimited amount of kittens. That's how money trees work. I thought everybody knew that. If somebody wants to plant a money tree in my backyard, all the slime will be free. People ask me that all the time, actually. You know that Goose loves his little sister. Oh, is your cat's name Goose? I love that. Or is it her snarky coin vault? I'm broke and I hate my job. Wait, Shelly, what job do you have currently? I feel like I don't even know. Wait, like, let's take a minute really quickly before we start, just to wait for like one or two more of our regular book club people to get on. And then we're going to start the circus train, which I think is going to be phenomenal. Thank you. To say, can everybody tell me, yeah, I don't know. Can everybody tell me if they have a job or if their stay-at-home mom is their job or what all of those things? Because I know some people's, like I know we have a couple of nurses in our group, and we have a couple of stay-at-home moms in our group. That's my chosen job. If ever I am extremely wealthy or marry extremely wealthy, my job will be stay-at-home mom. Veterinary technician, beautiful. Stay-at-home mom, that's the jealousy coming out of me. Legal analyst, nope, couldn't do that. Don't tell my kid. In marketing technology, for like what kind of thing? Specialty pharmacy tech. My mom wanted my brother to do that. He's not going to because whatever. Full-time accountant, love the office. Abby, Karen, who was here, for the last couple of days, she's also an accountant. Private voice teacher, what kind of voice, Heidi? I make children in bulk. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Do you want to make me one? Do you want to make me one, Becca? Like if I give you my eggs, you want to make me one? Gonna grow me one? Can I pay Becca to grow me a baby? Stay-at-home daughter-in-law, but I also have an agree. Yeah. No, I know what you do, Shara. I'm the weirdo that loves regulations and taxes. Yeah, no, she's really good at oh yeah, if anyone doesn't know, Shira makes not only custom stuff, but she also has a Taylor Swift subscription box. What if it's more than one? I mean, that's fine. I'm a wheelchair user who works as a dance fitness instructor for people with disabilities. Get down with your bad self. That's amazing. Missy, have you ever considered doing one of the Disney races? They have an entire division for wheelchair users, truly, and it's one of the most inspiring things. It's so cool. Okay, so really quickly before we get started, I have to tell you all this because like, it almost makes me cry every time I see it, that this, like the Run Disney community is, it's chef's kiss kind of like warm your heart kind of thing. Oh my God, musical theater's your niche. Is that why you're here? Because we have that in common. So the wheelchair users start the race first for obvious reasons. And then the runners all start with times after that. And usually the wheelchair users, before my division of runners, because I'm slow, starts, it's in Florida or California, Missy. You can do it in both. But before my division starts, the wheelchair users are usually nearly to the end. And by the time I get to mile 1 or 2, usually the wheelchair users are coming back around towards the finish line. And one of the most beautiful things that I always see is that a lot of the runners stop along the course for a second, and this screws our time up, but we do it anyway, to cheer the wheelchair people as they're coming to the finish line, and then we keep going and finish our race. And it's like this really human moment. I'm moving to San Diego, so that could totally work. Oh yeah, it would be like an hour and a half drive. That's like nothing for a cool experience like that. So it's like this really beautiful moment where you see a whole bunch of runners stopped on the side of the road, like waiting, and then we watch all the wheelchair users go to the finish line, and then we keep on going and we run. I found you via theater. Now I own a lot of slime. It totally does. I started in musical theater and do slime as well, Heidi. So right in line. Seeing the word coffee makes me realize how long I haven't had it for. How long haven't you had it for? How long? How long haven't you had it for? Okay, let's read because I do have a really busy day today with meetings and stuff. So we're going to get started. If anyone is new here, this is book club. Welcome to it. We're starting a new book today, so it is a great time to be joining us. This sounds like it's going to be a really wonderful book, but it also sounds like it's going to be pretty intense. I don't know. Hey B, I don't know what kind of trigger warnings to give for this book other than what I can assume from the blurb on the back of it. The main character is disabled, and it is 1938. So I'm assuming that there is some stuff with that because being disabled now is already, there's a lot of discrimination against it now, but can you imagine how much worse I'm sure it was in 1938? No, I wasn't alive, but I'm assuming it was, whatever. And then what I do, it's set, you know what it doesn't say? I think they go all different places. I think that's the whole point, is that they're a traveling circus. So I don't think we know where it's set, but it is 1938. And it is also set during World War II. And one of the characters is Jewish. So trigger warning for everything that goes along with that as well, because obviously probably 50% of my friends, both in our community here and out in my regular life before TikTok, are Jewish. So I'm always very sensitive to that as well. But I think it's going to be a great book. I believe, it is a BIPOC female author. So that's really cool as well for us to be supporting in the year of our Lord 2023. Get more works published by people like that. I'm going to be thinking about indecent the whole time. I don't know what that is. What's that? What's indecent? I don't know what that is. So anyway, if you are a part of any of those marginalized communities, trigger warning, but I think it's going to be good. You know what I mean? So let's go ahead and get started. Oh, the play indecent. Okay, well, it's also just a word, so I don't know. Yes. I do know the play. Yes. Okay, so This is by Amita Parikh. The first appearance deceives many. Phaedrus. It was capitalized. Okay, well, there's probably other things called indecent. A note to the reader. This novel touches on the reality of living with polio in the 1930s to 1950s. Anyone wishing to learn more about the experience of individuals affected by polio and or disabilities in this era should refer to the author's note at the end of this book. Okay, so the author is going to be as sensitive as we hope with that. I'm going to sneeze. Hold on. Sorry, just one moment. The other thing I want to mention, we probably can ask my mom a lot about this as we're reading. When my mom hasn't been home in a couple of weeks, but she's going to come home this weekend. My great aunt, my grandfather's younger sister, had polio. She was born in, I believe she was born in 1915 or 1916. Yeah, right, Missy? It's going to be amazing for you, for all of us. But my great aunt was born in either 1915 or 1916, and she had polio and was severely affected by it. And so my mom always talks a lot about her experience, learning about that as she was growing up, because by the time my mom was a little kid, obviously there was already a vaccine for it, but there was not in this time period. So as we're reading this, if we have any questions about it, we can for sure ask my mom to talk about her aunt. My grandmother had polio as a child for 8 years. She's 100% fine now. Yeah, my great aunt went on to live a very fulfilled life, but she did suffer from things, complications from polio for the rest of her life. Like, for example, half of her face was, what do you call it? What's the word? Paralyzed. I couldn't think of the word. Half of my great aunt's face, even when I was a kid, I knew her, and half of her face was paralyzed from, she was paralyzed from the polio that like caused part of her face to like fall a lot. Side note, I made a documentary in 9th grade about. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. What an amazing, thank God for that vaccine, am I right? So it'll be really interesting for us to read this. I really love learning more about this time period, especially because, I knew what you meant, Bell's palsy. Yeah. But yeah, it's an interesting time, but also it was like the height of my grandparents' lives, and they were the coolest people I've ever known. So let's get into it, as it were. All right, prologue. May 1929, Thessalonica, Greece. 24, maybe 48 hours, Dr. Kominos delivered his diagnosis as though he were reciting a weather report or the answer to a math problem. He tucked his stethoscope in his black leather medical bag and snapped it shut, the shiny front buckle casting a shard of light across the room. "Is there anything I can do?" Theo asked, grief cloaking his face. Dr. Kominos hesitated. He knew Theo lived in a world of hope, of make-believe, of what could be, but there was no denying the truth about his wife. "I'm afraid it's too late for Gia. A cold towel will make the pain more bearable. Your daughter, however," the doctor trailed off. Over the years, he'd learned that the most difficult aspect of being a physician was giving people false expectations. Pragmatic to a fault, he thought it was always best to err on the side of caution. "Yes?" Theo asked, wringing his hands. "Once the fever subsides, I'll have a better idea of what her limitations will be. And to be honest, I wouldn't have expected her to survive." Dr. Kominos admitted, stacking rolls of gauze on the bedside table. "St. Demetrios himself must be watching over her. So she'll live." Dr. Kominos sighed, thinking about the paperwork waiting for him back at his office. "If her fever breaks tonight, as I expect it will, then yes, I see no reason why she won't live. As for what kind of life she'll have..." He picked up his medical bag, forcing himself to look Theo in the eye. "It's too early to say, but take it from me. In these types of situations, expectation usually leads to disappointment." He pushed open the bedroom door. "I'll be by first thing in the morning to check in," he said, descending the white stuccoed staircase. Theo stood at his window, watching the doctor walk east on Kessidra. He willed him to turn around, to come back, to have a eureka moment. From the crib in the corner, he heard the muffled sounds of the baby, barely 24 hours old. Fear rose inside him as he rushed to check on her, but when he looked in, he saw that she was fast asleep, her tiny fingers curled up into tiny little fists. Relieved, he sat down on the edge of his bed where his wife Gia lay sleeping. Her face was pale despite the deep glow of the glaring late spring sun. Though the hottest season in Thessaloniki, I'm going to trip over that a million times, was yet to come, the room had an invisible layer of heat, and Theo noted that her breathing was labored but rhythmic. Around 6 o'clock in the evening, as Theo pressed a cool flannel against her forehead, Gia's eyes fluttered open. Theo's heart leaped. "Gia, can you hear me? Where is she? Is she okay?" Her words came out in a whisper, her voice scratchy and dry. Theo picked up the little girl, holding his breath as he lowered her slowly into her mother's arms. Her eyes were still glued shut, but her mouth opened wide, performing a perfect little O as she nestled her warm head into the crook of her mother's collarbone. "Helena," she whispered, beaming. "We will call her Helena, Lena for short." Theo leaned over and kissed her forehead. "You might recover. Dr. Komenos—" "I know what Dr. Komenos said," Gia smiled. She appreciated that Theo always tried to look on the bright side, but this time it wouldn't be enough. Helena stirred in her arms, and Gia used what little strength she had left to lean forward and kiss her lightly on the forehead, her nose, then her cheeks. Suddenly, all the things that she wouldn't be able to see, all the moments in her daughter's life that she would never witness, flooded into her mind at a rapid, devastating clip. Was this the price that she and Theo were to pay for their respective pasts? Something good had finally come of all their lies, and now she wouldn't be around to see Lena blossom. Overcome with emotion, she gazed up at Theo. "I kept your secret for you, and now you must promise to keep mine for me." Theo cradled mother and child in his arms as a response. He didn't want to let go. 8 hours later, it was apparent that the end was near. Resting the urge to climb into bed next to Gia, Theo remembered the promise he made. He sat down at his desk and took out a clean sheet of stationery. He picked up his pen to write, but paused. Eventually, he began to write what would become a lengthy explanation covering 2, then 3 pieces of paper. Towards the end, he realized that he was droning on, so he stopped, crumbled up the pages, and tossed them in the rubbish bin. He looked at little Lena, the new light of his life. In less than 5 hours, Dr. Komenos would return to confirm Gia's death. His visit would be followed by the arrival of a nurse who would show Theo how to test the milk temperature on the inside of his wrist, tell him what to do if Lena required a nappy change, and show him how to massage her legs with a special kind of apricot oil, and demonstrated how to use a chilled compress to soothe her heat rash. But Theo first had to close the door on the past. He took out another piece of paper and began writing. This time, he got straight to the point. "I cannot be without you. I must think of the girl. Please." Oh, I'm so sorry. I need to go back. I read that wrong, and this is really important. "I cannot be with you. I must think of the girl. Please do not contact me again." Woof, what a prologue. So intense. Who's he writing to? I don't know. Part 1. My object is to mystify and entertain. I wouldn't deceive you for the world. And apparently this quote is attributed to someone named Howard Thurston, but I guess we don't know for sure that it was him. Chapter 1. This is going to be such a good book. I'm really excited. I told you all, literally the minute that I read the blurb, I was like, I know we have to read this. I'm not even going to go check with the group. I'm just going to trust that they're going to believe me when I say that this feels like it's going to be a great book. And I think it is.
Chapter 1. September 1938, London, England. How many do you think there are? Do you think that any of them are handsome? Trust you, Suze, to ask that. Lena Papadopoulos stared at the two girls standing a few feet in front of her. They were gathered at the end of the hallway that led to the circus director's study, trying to get their best gauge as to what was happening behind the closed doors. Laura, an acrobat from Brighton, pulled her long blonde hair into a ponytail and crouched down on the plush blue carpet. She was what Director Horace called a circus chameleon, posing the rare ability to slip in and out of many acts, aerial silks, trapeze, contortion at any moment's notice. Maybe I can spot something from this angle. She splayed herself flat on her stomach and rested her chin in the tiny gap where the carpet met the cool marble tile that made up the study's foyer. Lena thought that she looked like an elegant upside-down starfish. "Oh, do get up. This is pointless," Suze moaned, a sprig of red curls bouncing madly around her face. Suze had just joined the circus in Dublin a year ago and was training to be a water ballerina. She jutted her hip out and glanced at Laura, brushing lint from her leotard. "I dare you to go up there." "No, thanks." "Go on," Suze cajoled. "No." Laura stretched her slender arm over her head and arched her ribcage forward. Suze pouted and began kicking at the hallway baseboards, her bright green eyes roving around impishly before settling on Lena. "Why, hello, Lena. I didn't notice you there." Lena blushed. She hadn't realized that Suze even knew her name. "Hi," she squeaked, tentatively inching herself forward. A wide smile spread across Suze's face. "How'd you like to play a game?" She pointed towards Horace's study. "If you go up there and see if there are any handsome boys, I'll give you a shilling." "Suze," Laura warned. "I'd like to play," Lena answered, grateful for the chance to be included. A satisfied smile settled on Suze's face and she nodded towards the study. "Whenever you're ready." Lena took a deep breath and began rolling herself forward. As she crossed over from the carpet onto the smooth marble, she felt her stomach turn in somersaults and told herself firmly not to mess this up. She had a chance to be part of Suze's friend group. Everyone loved Suze, and she was like a firefly, her magnetic temperament attracting the attention of boys and girls alike. As she drew closer to the double oak doors, Lena imagined what it would be like to sit next to Suze at meals and have those same children clamoring to speak with her. Horace's study was housed in its own carriage, styled in a way that one would expect from the wealthy entertainment impresario. A giant spotlight shone from each side of the doors, ensuring that whenever Horace entered or exited, he was always the center of attention. A tiny row of hand-painted blue and gold tiles ran around the perimeter of the foyer. In the center, a stunning Ming vase, crafted from the finest porcelain, sat on a stone pedestal. The marble floor had been imported from a quarry in Italy, and the space just outside the doors was inlaid with a custom mosaic emblem of Horace's initials. Lena came to a halt outside the entrance, positioning herself so that she could peer directly into the keyhole that was level with her line of sight. "Well?" Suze whispered loudly. Lena squinted, pushing one of the blue velvet tassels that hung from the brass door knockers out of the way. She could make out two young girls, a boy who looked to be a bit older than her, and a set of older boys who were probably teenagers, a few adults, some children, and a mother jiggling her baby in her arms. "I think I see him. Tall black hair, holding juggling balls. That's him!" Suze nodded vigorously. "What's he saying?" Lena placed her ear against the keyhole and tried to listen. While she waited, she thought about the inaugural dinner to be held that evening. The marquee event kicked off the World of Wonders tour. Every year, Horace threw a lavish feast in the grand dining hall before the tour commenced. To be accepted into the World of Wonders was a prestigious thing, and Horace saw to it that no expense was spared. Last year's dinner had an Alice in Wonderland theme and featured dishes like mock turtle soup, glorious icebox cake in every size and shape, and glasses of champagne with little tags that read, "Drink me." After the meal, everyone had spilled outside, engaging in games of croquet with wooden mallets designed to look like flamingos and running through a maze that had been decorated with bushes of white roses splattered with brilliant red splashes. This year's theme was a Russian fairy tale called The Firebird, and Lena could hardly wait. Remembering the fat stacks of fluffy blinis she'd seen that Mario was preparing earlier in the kitchen. Suppose I'd like to do one of them. What of it? Lena refocused on the task. Oh, suppose I do like one of them. What of it? I missed it, but I can go listen to the last chapters of the book. I can't wait. Yeah, wait, hold on. What did you miss? I'm confused, but that's okay. I'm going to keep going. Lena refocused on the task at hand, straining to catch the new recruit's words, but they had moved around in the study and she wasn't having any luck hearing. So she looked through the keyhole again and tried to lip read. Remember that Jamie fellow? A fine mess you got into yourself with him, Laura scolded. All I'm saying is you don't want to repeat. Lena suddenly drew back sharply. Quick, they're coming. Oh, the prologue to My Name is Memory. Yes. That was an amazing one. Suze and Laura took off like lightning, sprinting away from Lena towards a set of heavy blue velvet drapes further down the hall. It was only after they reached the safety of the hanging fabric that Laura looked back, realizing what they'd done. Her face fell as she watched Lena furiously try to maneuver her chair away from the door. Lena, the vase! Laura jerked her head towards the pedestal. Lena twisted her head, her eyes falling on the vase. It wouldn't hide her completely, but she didn't have any other options. Laura! Suze whispered loudly from behind the lush folds. Leave her! From her position in the foyer, exposed beyond belief, Lena caught Laura's eye, noting the pity on her face. I'm sorry, Laura mouthed before diving behind the drapes with speed and grace that Lena would never have. Lena shook her head and tried to move, intent on reaching the vase, but her right wheel appeared to be stuck. Come on, she muttered, bending over to see what was wrong. Why won't you move? And then she noticed that there was a small groove between the tiles where her wheel had gotten stuck. Lena! Laura's voice echoed down the hallway, and Lena looked up to see the golden knob of Horace's door twisting. Out of ideas and time, she sat up and pushed extra hard, moving herself backwards at a fast clip. Good, she said to herself. If I can just get away from the doors, she thought. That's it, almost there. She stole a quick glance forward. Horace had opened the door but was exiting with her back towards her. She just needed a few more seconds. As I said, dinner will begin. Crash! Horace came to an abrupt halt, and the frightened shouts of the new circus members filled the foyer. From her place a few feet away, Lena squeezed her eyes shut, but when she finally dared to look, her heart sank. Tiny bits of blue and white porcelain lay scattered all over the tiles. Lena! Horace boomed. What have you done? Out of the corner of her eye, Lena saw the tips of Suze's red hair disappear behind the curtains. It was an accident, she said, forcing herself to look at Horace. He was down on his knees, picking up the hundreds of pieces in front of him. Have you any idea how expensive this was? I'm sorry, Lena whispered, wishing she could sink into the floor. She knew this wasn't the first impression he wanted to give the new performers. Indeed, the dozen or so people who had been in Horace's study were now staring at her uneasily. What's wrong with her? A young girl pointed at Lena. From the floor, Horace stood up with much difficulty, brushing off bits of porcelain dust from his bespoke midnight blue jacket suit. Everyone, I'd like you to meet Lena. She's the daughter of our renowned illusionist, Theo Papadopoulos. Lena cringed, wishing Horace would let her go, but she knew what was coming next, and sure enough, the question landed right on target. How'd she get that way? Not on account of your circus, was it? A young man who Lena had surmised was a knife thrower from the set of blades that gleamed in a bag slung over his shoulder eyed her suspiciously. Of course not, Horace replied hastily. We uphold the highest standards of safety at the Beddington and Sterling World of Wonders. In nearly a decade of operation, we have yet to lose a performer to long-term injury. Sprains and the occasional break are expected in this business, but Lena, he continued, pointing at her like she was an exhibit at a museum, tragically was born this way. Oh my, one of the women whispered. Still, we count ourselves lucky to have her on board, Horace said, his voice full of false care. Lena swallowed. She wasn't afraid of Horace, but she'd always gotten the feeling that he viewed her as a nerve-ending bill that he had to pay in order to keep her father happy. Everyone, I apologize for the disruption. You'll find your carriage assignments on your key tags. I invite all of you to start settling in. And as for you, he turned to Lena, his eyes gleaming with contempt, I trust you can keep yourself out of harm's way until the evening's festivities have concluded. Lena nodded and rolled her chair away, not bothering to glance back at the staring band of performers. What time do you think it will end? Lena asked. It was a few hours later, and her governess, Clara Smith, had just finished braiding her hair and was now tying a length of midnight blue ribbon to the end. Why do you ask? Lena pointed to the book on her nightstand. I'm at a part where Alice meets the Cheshire Cat. Clara chuckled. Might I suggest that you forget about reading for tonight and try to make a friend or two? There's bound to be a few new children on board. Lena frowned. They won't like me. Hey, hello everyone. They don't know you. If you talk to them, you might be pleasantly surprised. Lena shook her head, wondering at what point adults forgot what it was like to be young. I won't. They'll only pretend to be nice in front of the grown-ups, and then they'll go back to ignoring me, she explained, reaching back to feel the silky ribbon in her hair. That's not true. It is, Lena insisted, and the grown-ups do the same thing. I know because Johannes pretends to like everybody, but as soon as they're gone, he starts making faces. Clara burst out laughing, and Lena smiled at her governess in the mirror. Clara wasn't anything like the stuffy, uptight governesses that Lena had read about in her books. She'd grown up in places like London and Fulham and had come into Lena's life 3 years ago. Fed up with the subpar choice of suitors who kept calling her family home and not wishing to waste her years of education, Clara did what most women her age would never do. She joined the circus. Lena loved Clara. She liked the smart tweed skirt suits that she wore and the smell of the Amami shampoo that she washed her hair with every Friday. She liked the way she wrote her capital letters so neatly while completing the crossword puzzles at breakfast on the weekends. She liked that Clara had a proper job, not a circus job, and the way that she sometimes paired men's trousers with bright red lipstick and her brown hair falling in soft ringlets around her face. She liked that she was young enough to chum around with Lena, often playing checkers and snap with her in the evenings, but old enough to be firm when it was required. Lena? Lena's smile vanished. She turned around to see that her father, Theo Papadopoulos, had returned from his trip into town. Lena noticed how pink his cheeks and nose were from the cool autumn air as he tugged off a pair of gray gloves. Papa, you're back. I am indeed, he said, hanging up his coat and draping his scarf over the door. Clara, would you mind if I spoke with my daughter alone? Clara stood up. Not at all, sir. I'll use the time to prepare my dress. Theo smiled at the governess as she left and then took a seat in front of his daughter. So, how was your afternoon? Fine. I've almost finished the book. Already? Goodness. I wouldn't be surprised if you were the fastest reader this side of the ocean. Anything else happen? Lena bit her lip, wondering if she could get away with lying about the vase, but her father knew everything. It seemed to be a special kind of magical power that all parents possessed, the ability to know about every little mistake that their children made without having to ask. I didn't mean for the vase to fall. She threw her hands up into the air. It was an accident. But what were you doing outside of Horace's study in the first place? Didn't I leave you with enough activities? Theo gestured to the table beside her bed, where a stack of books, coloring pages, and a compass sat untouched. I wanted to play with the other girls, Lena whispered, twisting her hands in her lap. I'm sorry I broke it. Was it a lot of money? Theo leaned forward, his eyes crinkling affectionately. It's not the money. I know you like being around those girls, but they're a few years older than you and they're always getting into trouble. Good morning, Addie. This book has been really good so far. I highly recommend checking it out. They're my friends. Would your real friends let you take the blame for something that wasn't your fault? Theo raised an eyebrow and Lena blushed. Next time, please listen to me and stay here. He waved his arms around the bedroom. Lena glanced sadly at the shelf around her, at the books and the trinkets that her father had purchased. From a hand-painted dollhouse that they'd found in Utrecht, to a brilliant watercolor set from Bern, to the latest Beatrix Potter books, Lena had everything that a child could ever hope for. So why did she feel so empty? But not wishing to start an argument with her father, especially ahead of the dinner, she braced herself and smiled. I promise. Theo beamed and retrieved a silver bag from behind him, tied with strands of sparkly ribbon. Good. Now, every girl deserves something special before an inaugural dinner. Lena perked up seeing the bag and grabbed at it, tugging off the ribbon and removing the gift. Oh, Papa! It was a deep red velvet headband laced with an intricate pattern woven from thin golden thread, with 3 fake rubies shimmering at the center. She placed it on her head, twisted back and forth, admiring herself in the mirror. It's beautiful. You look like a Russian Tsarina, he said, bending down and planting a kiss on her forehead. Now, you must help me decide what to wear. The grand dining hall was the most magnificent carriage at the World of Wonders. Gargantuan chandeliers crafted from the finest Austrian crystals hung from the ceiling, making it look like diamonds were raining down on the tables. Blue paper flecked with gold leaf lined the walls, and the doors that faced the inner courtyard had been unlocked so that the guests could go outside. From her table, Lena watched, enthralled as the performers entered clad in traditional Russian dress. The men were in white rubikas embroidered with red, blue, and green thread, and the women were in colorful sarafans and glittering kokoshinks perched on top their head. I'm so sorry if I'm messing up all these Russian words. What do people always call during book time? I do not know, Becca. I do not know. The tables had been rearranged in a rectangle around the perimeter of the hall, leaving the center open for performances and speeches. After the main course had been served, it was a tradition for Horace to give a speech. Not one to break his traditional color scheme, he was dressed in a midnight blue tuxedo with tails and suede stripes, and he wore a matching suede top hat. As he waddled to the podium, Lena heard snickering. She turned and saw Suze trying to stifle a laugh 2 tables over. Laura caught Lena watching them and gave her a sympathetic wave and smile. Lena smiled back sadly and then refocused her attention on Horace. Her father was right, she thought. As much as she hated to admit it, she would never be like any of the other children here. It was best not to get involved with them. If I could have everyone's attention, please, Horace boomed. As is customary, this dinner marks the beginning of a journey that will take us through Europe. I have been running this show for 10 years, and each time I think it can't get any better, it inevitably does. The audience whistled and howled, and Lena joined in with the clapping. I shan't bore you with the intricacies of every act, costume, and musical piece that I have planned, but I would like to give the newcomers a brief glimpse of what to expect. Theo had left Lena's side at the start of Horace's speech and was now standing in the center of the room, flanked by 2 fire jugglers. On his cue, the jugglers lit the ends of their sticks and began tossing them high above. Behind them, the orchestra began to build, and the strains of traditional Russian folk songs filled the carriage. Theo held up a handful of red, yellow, and orange feathers for all to see. They were the kind easily found in a children's crafting shop for pennies a pound, but in Theo's hands, the mundane became magical. He scrunched them up into a tight ball in his fist, and then, with a flick of a wrist, he tossed them into the air. At the exact same time, the fire jugglers threw up their sticks. The audience gasped as the flames touched the feathers, setting them alight. A loud crack reverberated through the hall. A blast of orange illuminated the room, and out of the center, a magnificent firebird emerged. The onlookers pointed as the Firebird gathered speed, floating majestically through the air. Its wings were a rich ombre, starting from the deepest crimson at its breast, feathering out to a canary yellow at the tips. A halo of orange encircled its head, and a hint of gold glinted the feathers wherever they caught the light. Suddenly, the Firebird swooped down and stopped in front of Theo, who was moving his right arm like a conductor. The bird looked to the ceiling, hovering as though it trapped in a trance, and then it spread its wings and soared upwards, weaving in and out of the chandeliers. On the ground, Theo motioned to the fire jugglers to toss their sticks one last time. On the count of 3, they threw them as high as they could, and just as the orchestra reached the apex of its piece, smoky ash filled the air, and the bird looked like it was about to burst through the roof when Theo made one final sharp hand movement. There was a loud bang as a brilliant ball of red washed over the entirety of the carriage, and the whole room went dark. "The lights!" Horace yelled over the murmuring spectators, who were all trying to figure out what exactly had just transpired before their eyes. "Chadwick, the lights!" He scolded his assistant, who scurried back to the wall and flipped on the switch, flooding the room with beams of white. Lena rubbed her eyes, adjusting to the brightness, and then took the scene unfolding in front of her. All around her, people were on their feet, cheering. Children had abandoned their dessert and were clamoring around Theo, demanding to know how he had done it. Young women batted their eyelashes coquettishly at her father in his direction, showering him with praise. Beside Theo, Horace clambered back to his position at the podium, reveling in the spotlight. "Bravo!" he yelled, clapping stubby hands together, motioning to the orchestra, the jugglers, and Theo. "Quiet, please! Everyone, please be quiet!" he ordered. A silence settled over the crowd. "Thank you, gentlemen, for that spectacular performance. Remember, this is but a small taste of the magic and luxury you can expect to unfold over the course of this year. Now, I invite all of you to raise a glass." Horace held up a flute of champagne, the golden liquid sloshing in his hand. As the performers seated around followed his lead, Lena grabbed the steel cup that was sitting upside down at her place setting. When she picked it up off the table, she gasped. Staring back at her was a single feather, the tip a sparkly gold. She plucked it off the white linen cloth and glanced at her father, who was looking directly at her. He smiled and then winked. "Welcome," Horace said, his lips turning up in his signature charismatic smile as the crowd held up their glasses, "to the world of wonders." Man, oh man, this book is good. Holy moly. Oh, I love it. Do you guys love it? Oh, I'm really into this. This is really fun. Oh, thank you so much, Missy. I like doing voices. You know what's really funny about the fact that in the morning we do voices is that everyone always asks on all of, like, literally, when is it getting made into a movie? I know, right? I don't know. It's a brand new book. I think it's new anyway. Hold on. I think this book was published this year because I was looking for something new so that it wouldn't be something any of us had ever read before. I'm going to look at... Okay, so it was published in Canada last year for the first time. This is the first printing in the US. It's brand new. It's going to be so good. This is not your real voice. We all know it. Yeah, it's really funny. Like, I think people think I'm exaggerating when I say this. I get roughly between 100 to 200 comments per day that all say, "Is this your voice or is this the TikTok voice?" Or say, like, "Why are you using the TikTok voice filter?" Or all of these things. Like 100 to 200 comments per day. And it's not, and you don't see them because they're not always on recent videos. Because sometimes like an old video will go viral. Like the one with the Nickelodeon slime goes viral like every couple of days and it gets like 100,000 new views and there's always 100 new comments. "Is that your real voice? Is that you?" And I'm like, first of all, why do you care? Like that's my first question to all of them. Like, why do you care? Like it's a video about slime. TikTok should pay you they've already paid someone who sounds exactly like me, apparently. Had to hop off to get to a meeting. Have a great day. Bye, Addie. We'll see you later. I giggled so much at your recent TikTok. I was trying to like, you all know that this is, it doesn't matter. That's what I'm saying, Becca. Like, it doesn't matter. But like, it's so many comments that I feel like I have to respond to them because it's so many. Like, if it had ever been like one person, I would just ignore it. But it's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of comments. And I don't know how to convince them. But when you come on our morning lives, you know it's my regular voice because this is how I talk to all of you. And then I put on fake voices when I read the characters. You know what I mean? Like when I'm reading, like, especially when I'm reading out loud and things like that, I try to put on, especially when I'm reading out loud. Is she dumb or is she just tired? The world may never know. I try to put on different voices so that, because you all can't see the quotation marks and not quotation marks. So I hope that you guys have realized that's what I've been doing. I think the really fast blah, blah, blahs were very convincing. The reason that I do the different voices is not only because it's fun. I read in voices in my head too. I do as well, Shelly. But the reason I do it is because you can't tell when I'm reading to you where quotations begin and the non-quotations end. So I try to read narrative in my own voice. So when you hear Sasha's voice, you know, okay, that's just narration. And then when I read different characters, I try to give them all different kind of voices, like lower my voice for the guy characters and whatever, so that you guys can know what's a quote and what's narration. You know what I mean? The voices totally put that across. Okay, excellent. Because you can't see it, you know, so I feel bad. You and Jim Dale. Thank you. I worked with him once. Did you know that? I worked on a show that he performed in. Many, many, many years ago. He was in a play. Yes, I think so. Was it his one-man show, or was he in The Velocity of Autumn? I loved your evil Lady Tremaine voice. Yeah, that's my creepy villain voice. Yeah, creepy villain voice. Okay, what time is it? It is 8:02. I really do have to get to work, but let's see how long the next chapter is. Oh, it's not very long. Do you guys want to do one more chapter? The next chapter looks like it's only like 11 pages. You know what, Shelly? I only just worked very tangentially on his show because I was a junior press rep at the time, and I was really working on musicals, but they had me help out on his show. Sasha, I got suspended because I fought someone, and now I need to go to a hearing. That's not good. Okay, one more. We'll read this really fast, and then I'll go. We want whatever you will read. Well, some people have to go to work and things like that. You know what I mean? Like, okay, chapter 2. To understand what made the Beddington and Sterling world of wonder so unique, one has to begin in Boston in 1913, where a 7-year-old boy named Horace Beddington III lived. As the heir to the Beddington fortune, Horace didn't need to work. Jealous. But his father beat him and his mother cried, and Horace decided early on that he couldn't be a part of that family. People envied their wealth, but Horace remembered yearning to be poor if it meant having parents who cared. Ouch. Ooh, that hurt. Horace remembered yearning to be poor if it meant having parents who cared. Despite their wealth, Horace's father insisted he learn the value of the dollar early on. Every morning during his summer breaks, Horace woke early, walking up and down the streets of the sleepy suburb of Somerville and delivering the Globe newspaper. Following this, he accompanied his father to the office on Atlantic Avenue, setting himself up outside Quincy Market with a box of shoe polish and an assortment of cloths that he will use to make something of himself. His father had already decided that Horace would follow in his banking footsteps, but when an 8-year-old Horace heard the men whose shoes he shined talking about mergers and oil prices, he knew he just couldn't do it. Horace was an only child, and the constant bickering between his parents meant he never wanted to invite any of his classmates over. He grew up somewhat isolated, dreaming of the day that he would finally be able to leave home. Horace's grandmother, Esther, noticed his reticence and began buying him toys and books. Among these gifts was a magic set. Horace quickly took a shine to it, thrilled that it required no extra people to use it. unlike the board games his parents bought him every Christmas. Horace holed himself up inside most nights practicing. On weekends, he retreated to his grandmother's house in Lexington, where he would perform for her, pulling scarves out of hats and sending cards soaring into the air. Esther would watch patiently, clapping politely at the end of each trick. She didn't have the heart to tell her only grandchild that he was mediocre at best. And she liked his company. She liked the fact that finally someone saw her as something more than a widow and a burden to take care of, or an endless source of easy income. On long summer weekends, Esther would often take Horace down to Manhattan. She'd buy tickets for whichever vaudeville or magic show happened to be playing, and then sit observing Horace lose himself in the performance of Thurston and Cardini. Afterwards, she'd take him to Martinica, a magic shop on 6th Avenue, giving him extra spending money to buy whatever he wanted. They'd frequent the back parlors of Hell's Kitchen in Chelsea, where soothsayers sat behind fringed curtains, holding crystal balls and spouting fortunes to anyone willing to pay. On a particularly memorable trip, a clairvoyant proclaimed Horace's future would be full of promise. "You'll do great things." Horace beamed and Esther smiled knowingly. She knew her grandson was capable of greatness. He simply needed to hear it from someone else. A trip to Harry Houdini's residence at the Hippodrome would prove to be a turning point. In the lobby of the theater, Horace spied a mermaid. Of course, it was actually a woman dressed up to look like a mermaid, but to Horace, she was an ethereal, celestial being. As she floated around the tank filled with water, smiling coyly at onlookers, Horace pushed his way to the front and placed his hand on the glass. The glass was thick, and he could see his reflection looking back at him. As a chubby, lonely teenager, he was extremely uncomfortable around girls, but the mermaid propelled herself forward and placed her hands against his, their palms separated only by an inch of glass, and she smiled. At that moment, his fate was sealed. Only in a world like this, he thought, could a creature so beautiful connect with someone like him. He wanted to bring the feeling of euphoria he had to everyone. After that day, Horace dedicated himself to practicing magic. He made repeat trips to Martinica and spent hours in front of his mirror trying to make something out of nothing. But quick hands and a deft touch were not among Horace's strong points, and he began to lose hope. During the summer break before his final year of school, Horace overheard the conversation between two men behind him in line at Lydell's bakery. "Audrey wouldn't shut up about it. How long's in town for? They come through every year, stick around a few days, then pack up as if they never existed." The man traced a circle with the toe of his shoe in a layer of flour dust. "But one thing I do know is that the showman's making a whole lot of dough." Horace twisted his head and saw the man rubbing his thumb and forefinger together. "Hey, kid, you ordering?" Horace blinked 3 times before realizing that they were referring to him. Outside Lydell's, he clutched the cinnamon bun he'd bought for himself. Horace made a decision that would change his life. He would never be the leading man, the Lothario, the Casanova, but what he could do was see possibility where no one else did. He could be the architect, the visionary who pulled together a show so mesmerizing that it would blow everyone else out of the water. What he lacked in looks and skill, he made up for in taste. Plus, he had the backing of a grandmother who hated to see him bullied by her own son. Following the heated argument with his father and a lot of crying and begging from his mother, Horace Beddington III, age 17, boarded a Red Star Line ship to England, and with an early inheritance from Esther, as the ship sailed eastward, the smell of rotting fish, sweat, and salt tickled his nose. Horace watched the deckhand pull a piece of thick twined rope and wrap it around the barrel. When the deckhand paused to wipe his brow with the back of his cap, he noticed Horace looking at him. "Where you heading, sir?" he called out in the signature Bostonian drawl. Horace smiled. No one had ever called him sir before. Things were different already. "To London. I hear the streets there are paved with gold." In London, Horace quickly settled himself in a house on Fitzroy Park, conveniently located but a stone's throw from Whittenhurst Manor. Thanks to Esther's social circles and connections, Horace was welcomed into the upper crust of British society. Still, it was up to him to put his plan into motion. Through conversations, he learned that a group of magicians performed weekly at St. George's Hall. He looked up an usher job, determined to learn everything from the ground up. He worked there for years, taking notes and thinking about how he would do things differently and wondering how he could improve upon the acts if they were his. Even after he'd seen every performance and could recite what each magician would say word for word, he continued to watch perched in the corner, his flashlight turned off. "Why do you keep watching the same acts over and over?" his boss asked one day. "Are you daft?" "I'm not watching the acts. I watch the audience. I want to see what leaves them breathless." In the evenings, he nursed pint after pint at the flask, flagging down the bartender by clanking his shillings on the wood tables. In his growing collection of leather notebooks, he drafted the details of what would become his masterpiece. Fueled by drink, his imagination took over, and he dreamed of otherworldly delights. He would call his show the Beddington and Sterling World of Wonders. In doing so, he would be paying homage to both himself and his grandmother, Sterling being her maiden name. The colors would be blue and gold, and it wouldn't be a typical circus or vaudeville act. He would show things differently than the ones in the cheap dime museums, different than those shady back parlors that stank of stale cigar smoke. It would be different than watching groups of poor street performers who lined the cobblestones of Covent Garden. Different than the solo magicians in the Alhambra. Gone were the red and yellow striped tents, the humdrum lions and elephants, the stale popcorn, the candied apples, and the sticky children fingers. No, the Beddington and Sterling would be elevating the circus into a luxurious sphere and bring together the best parts of all those traveling shows and then some. It would serve to mesmerize and leave the audience stunned. With his money, Horace charmed his way into many pocketbooks. Men didn't see him as a threat. No self-respecting woman would ever want to date Horace. And when women looked upon him as a friend and a confidant who they could confide their dreams and fears in this way he was able to gain their trust. When it came to raise funds for his show, the family at Whittenhurst was all too happy to host a magic-themed cocktail party. It was Beddington and Sterling's party. Horace had spent 6 months cultivating talents that he'd met over his years in London and convinced them all to band together and perform a new set of tricks, for one night only. By the time the rapt crowd had watched contortionists squeeze their limbs through the limber frames of gilded cages, a magician turned the ace of hearts into smoke, and the acrobats made up like mermaids executed a water ballet routine in a gigantic rectangular tank filled with lilac-hued water. They were reaching for their checkbooks. While the partygoers watched, Horace did the rounds, clad in a blue and gold tuxedo from H. Huntsman and Sons. As bankers and lawyers and landowners signed over their savings, Horace swelled with pride. No matter what people said they wanted, real estate, stocks, bonds, their actions spoke louder. People wanted an escape. They wanted entertainment, a place where they could revel in wonder and forget about the drudgery of everyday life. And that night, Horace proved that he could provide that in spades. Flush with investor cash, Horace traipsed the globe, building the vision he'd first drafted in a smoke-filled tavern of North London. In Romania, he scoured the playgrounds of the poorest schools, hand-selecting girls who turned cartwheels and at a dizzying pace and boys who used tree branches as playthings, swinging and twisting like it was second nature. At an orphanage in Persia, he spotted a young girl who curled up in a corner, her aquamarine eyes staring at him. "How much for her?" The orphanage director proceeded to spin a tale of how the girl named Pari was royal, descended directly from Nadir Shah, but that no one in her family wanted her because of her Russian mother. Horace sighed. This tale no doubt would hike up the price. But as Horace left the orphanage, Pari's little hand clutched in his, he somehow knew that the girl would be a good return on his investment. In the Atlas Mountains, he found strong men who could lift 200-pound barbells like they were bags of feathers. In a Nigerian church, an uncommonly tall 10-year-old girl named Neka took his breath away. Her skin was a dark brown, save for a perfectly symmetrical patch of cream. cascading down the middle of her face. Her hair splayed out in all different directions like it had a mind of its own, and it refused to be tamed. When she noticed Horace staring at her, she immediately cast her gaze downward. For a moment, Horace's heart ached. He knew what it was like to be an outsider. When he inquired about her, the church director shrugged. Some kind of skin condition she was born with. She's been sleeping on the corn sacks in the back. Her mama's dead. Her daddy don't want her. She just sleeps there, sweeps the floor, and sings all day long. The church director shook his head. It's a shame. And then Horace heard it. Her voice, so powerful, so melodious for someone so young. He listened in awe to the skinny girl sweeping the sanctuary floor and belting out song after song with a maturity that belied her years. When Nneka sang, she transformed into another being. Name your price, he said. The church director shook his head. God has bestowed upon this child a rare gift, something so holy cannot be bought. But a few more rounds of haggling, and the church director decided that Nneka and her voice were indeed worth something, and armed with a string of rosary beads and a Bible, she joined Horace on his tour. Across the ocean in Brazil, a troupe of capoeira dancers and drummers were only too willing to join Horace as their form of entertainment was being suppressed by the authorities. In Germany and the Soviet Union, he found swimmers who'd been cut from the Olympic teams and still had something to prove. Yay, hi, sweetheart. It's your lunchtime already? Oh my gosh. And so it went. For nearly a year, Horace traveled, adding to his collection of performers. He never went for the best, most popular ones. Instead, he was careful to choose the ones who had either lost someone, a parent, a spouse, a child, or who were constantly finishing a third or fourth in their respective sport or art form. These people, he reasoned, were right on the edge of glory, the people who would fight for acceptance and who would continually strive to be the best. Yeah, definitely tell your mom about it. His cachet of acts was almost complete, and Horace returned to London, installing his recruits in a home next to his own under the supervision of his assistant, Chadwick. The only thing that Horace was missing now was an illusionist, one act that would end each performance and leave people's jaws hanging. He got his wish in Thessaloniki, where he spotted Theo Papadopoulos. To many, Theo Papadopoulos was the greatest illusionist of all time. When he performed in the Amsterdam port, sailors from as far as the Caspian Sea would halt their expeditions, anchoring their boats so that they could see him walk on water. Children gasped as he turned the tepid beige of the stray goats dotting the Italian hillside into the colors of a rainbow. In Vienna, the famed Berg Theater, women swooned as he transformed simple pebbles into glittering diamonds with a squeeze of his hand. Grown men regularly forgot that they were men and unleashed childlike squeals of disbelief when he emerged intact after having an assortment of Japanese knives inserted into his body in a wooden box. Everywhere he went, London, Prague, Berlin, people came to marvel. There was nothing Theo couldn't do, no trick he couldn't master. As Horace watched him perform, spellbound, he experienced a tingling feeling. The sensation that was what he had been working towards was finally complete. Leo had the showmanship of Houdini, the skill of Devant, and the intelligence of Keller. When the performance finished, Horace waddled through the dispersing crowd like a penguin, sweating in the searing Greek sun. It was important to him to maintain an air of professionalism, he told himself, glancing down at his long suit tails. He didn't care what he had to promise the illusionist. He thought as he mopped his forehead with a cotton hanky. He was determined to sign what he knew would be the crown jewel of his world of wonders. But Horace's smile faded when he saw the dapper illusionist's wife, Gia, turn around. She was a classic beauty, her face resembling that of a goddess. She looked like she had been carved from marble. Long dark hair swept to one side, fastened with a clip. Her stomach, although not as big as Horace's, was certainly larger than normal. Still, he forged ahead, introducing himself, and invited them both to dinner. Later that night, they dined on Cypriot food at the top of the hotel overlooking the Thermikalos Gulf. I hope I'm saying that right. Theo told Horace how he got his start in the business. He'd fallen in love with magic after visiting a circus that had come through the city when he was 5. After his father had cast him out of their house for choosing an unconventional career, Theo worked as a carpenter to pay his bills and honed his magician skills at the children's birthday parties of the area. It took many years, but he eventually worked his way up to being one of Europe's most in-demand illusionists. By the time Theo was finished, Horace had decided that he was perfect, tall and commanding, but in a non-threatening way, relatable to adults and children alike. Women loved him, Horace observed, catching more than one lady sneaking a look at the handsome performer when he spoke. Horace outlined his plan for the Beddington and Sterling world of wonders, and not wishing to waste any more time, made them verbal. Theo glanced at his wife. "You must understand that I can't travel at the moment." Horace nodded. "We can wait until after the baby's born. Our carriages are outfitted like first-class cabins, and I'll see to it that the nursery is built. The child will want for nothing." Gia cleared her throat, and Horace continued. "And for you, madame? We'll have a state-of-the-art game room, billiards, darts, mahjong, cards. Access to the finest European society gatherings. Quite often, it's the rich who are clamoring to associate with us. Martha, my head customer, and her team were hired away from the house of Lavigne. My head costumer, sorry. They can make anything you want. Velvety gowns, silk flapper dresses, diamante skull caps, anything." Gia sipped her San Pellegrino and glanced at Theo. "What do you think?" He placed a protective hand on her stomach. "We'll wait, of course. But afterwards..." You're probably just lost because you joined in the middle, but we're reading the Circus Train. The Circus Train. Yeah. Gia nodded thoughtfully, but didn't look entirely convinced. Horace played his trump card. "My staff physician, Dr. James Wilson, ran the best clinic on the Harley Street before joining us. He was educated at St. Bart's and graduated first in his class." He smiled, a satisfied look on Gia's face. "We'll join, but I have one condition," Gia said. "I want my child to have an education. The best tutors, the finest books, and access to top universities, all at your cost." Horace couldn't believe his luck. If all the most talented illusionist in the world and his wife wanted was a few good school teachers, he had hit the jackpot. He wiped the corner of his mouth with a cloth napkin and extended his hand. "You have a deal." The next morning, Theo signed his contract, and Horace promised to return in 3 months. Producers are used to being ready for worst-case scenarios, performers suffering injuries, things going wrong, contracts that don't work out, but Horace wasn't expecting a widower. When Theo opened the door on a hot July morning, clutching a baby wrapped in a white blanket, a shock of dark brown hair peeking through the folds, he looked worse for the wear. "Forgive me, Horace, but I don't see how I can honor our agreement," Theo said after explaining what had happened to Gia and his daughter. The baby stirred, and Theo rocked his arms back and forth. Horace was flummoxed. He had prepared for any situation, but this one. He briefly considered trying to find another illusionist, but he knew no one could hold the candle to Theo. Besides, he thought, he was Horace Beddington III. He was used to hard work, and he was used to things not going right the first few times. So Horace called Chadwick and told him that there'd been an unexpected obstacle and that he'd be back in a few weeks. He took up residence in a 2-bedroom flat on Temeke Avenue. Horace rose with the morning, market peddlers bringing fresh leeks, spinach, plastos, and to Theo's doorstep. He hired a team of the best doctors, instructing them to do everything he could to make the little girl's life as bearable as possible. He found round-the-clock wet nurses and a cook to prepare fresh meals using ingredients that he'd picked up at the Modiano market each morning. Horace insisted on paying for a new tombstone to mark Gia's grave, and he watched from a distance as Theo paid his respects every Sunday following the weekly service at the Hagia Sophia. Driven by a will to succeed, Horace plowed the remaining bits of energy and money he had into Theo and his daughter's well-being. He had to have him on board for the world of wonders, and if that meant giving him more than he'd bargained for, Horace was willing to do it. His persistence paid off. One morning in September, Theo showed up outside Horace's flat, the baby swaddled in pink linen blankets. If the show would pay for Lena's medical expenses, a governess, and plus allow him 2 months off to return to Thessaloniki every year, they'd have a deal. A month later, Theo Papadopoulos arrived at the Victoria station with 2 trunks, his daughter, and a desire to leave his old life, along with all the secrets that he'd kept hidden for so long, behind him. The Beddington and Sterling World of Wonders would open at the London Palladium, and from there begin traversing the continent. It was 1929. Trotsky had been exiled. Hoover was now president. The stock market had just crashed. No matter what happened, Horace insisted on moving forward. The show must go on, he said. Yes, when Horace Beddington III wanted something, nothing stood in his way. I'm already invested. I'm leaving for a cruise this weekend. I will have to miss book club. Oh my gosh, you got to get the book. You got to get the book. I mean, this book it's so good already. I'm like freaking out. Like this, I don't know. I think this is great. I'm blown away by this book already. I love it. I'm all in invested. I love this. I love circus stories though. That was chapter 2. But it really, even though it's chapter 2, I think it gives a really well-rounded view of everything. Like it's great. Yeah. Or order it. It came one day on Amazon. I got it on Amazon one day. Yeah, I think it's great. Yeah, you can do that too. You can get it at the library, all different things. All sorts of fun stuff. A+ choice, A+ boys, A+ audience. I'm loving this. Well, I'm so glad. Yeah, our book club is a really tight-knit little group of happiness. I need to know these secrets. I know. I wonder when we're going to find out what their secrets were. Anyway, I will be on later tonight. I'm actually making, I think, Tiffany, it's your custom order that I'm making tonight on live, right? Get me the details of everything you want for that. I'm also very into early foreshadowing. Same. I love stuff like this. I got to go get a bunch of work done. I will be on Slime Live tonight. I have I'll probably make some more Princess Slimes on live, but I also make the custom order. I was wondering what happened with the mom. I know. Yeah, she passed away. Have an awesome day, y'all. Can you remind me again what slime is beginner friendly? Yeah. If it's for a kid, I recommend starting with cloud or cloud dough. If it's for an adult, cloud dough, or butter would be good for a beginner. Any idea what time? Probably in the 6-ish range is usually pretty convenient. I usually finish my regular work up by 6 o'clock, and then I can focus on that. No worries, y'all. I will see you all later. That's what we need for the custom order. Yeah. It's for me. I'm an adult child. No, totally. Listen, start with cloud or butter, Missy. Start with cloud or butter. Yeah. You'll be keeping me company at work tonight. Yes. Everybody have a great day. Let's all go have a rip-roaring circus thrilling time. And I'll see you all tonight. Bye, everybody.